Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Michael J. Miles.
We want to thank everybody for coming tonight. You're at the Two-Way Street Virtual Coffee House. It's so great to have you here. We're doing things a little different today. We're in a Zoom meeting, so feel free to join us if you like to watch that way. We're going to have a quick little question and answer afterwards and meet and greet for the artists. We're really excited, though, for Robert Jones and Matt Watroba. So I've discovered that Robert has not been to the Two-Way Street stage before, so please give him a big welcome, everybody out there. And then Matt has been here recently as 2019, but first came to our stage in 2009. So, and then we've seen them both throughout the virtual folk and back in the day when we would do in-person conferences.
So long ago.
We would see them being leaders in amongst the pack and teaching us all. So I'm so excited that they're here to perform for us tonight. But I just want to remind everybody, tomorrow we have a virtual sing around at 2 o'clock. That is also a Zoom meeting, and you can find that on our website or on our social media if you'd like to find that information. And next week we have a new artist to the Two-Way Street stage. Her name is Jamie Harris, and so we're excited to welcome another new artist next week, as well as Robert tonight. So take it over.
Yes. So don't forget to go to our website and donate tonight. www.twowaystreet.org. The money will be going to Robert and Matt. So please be generous as you can because they're working for your donations tonight. So a little bit about Robert and Matt. Ever since their first meeting over 30 years ago, Robert Jones and Matt Watroba have been musical partners. Their relationship started when they hosted back-to-back radio shows on WDET-FM Detroit. Later on, they started performing together, and in doing so, they discovered a friendship based in mutual respect and a love for traditional American music. Now, Matt and Robert literally travel the nation extolling the virtues of music that matters. For Matt and Robert, American roots music, folk, blues, spirituals, work songs, chants, etc., is music that matters. This is the music that America and the world have in common. It is music that reflects history, social change, migration, hopes, and dreams. It is the music that is rich and diverse, direct and powerful. As talented as they are individually, Matt and Robert together form a synergy that is hard to describe. Together, they formed a nonprofit company called Common Chords to connect communities through music and the arts. And we are thrilled to have them both tonight here on the virtual Two-Way Street stage. Welcome, Matt Watroba and Robert Jones.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. I love the Two-Way Street. I've been wanting to get my friend Robert out there, and I guess we just had to have a pandemic to make it happen.
We don't like to do anything easy. We do it rough.
Well, as they said, we did meet over 30 years ago, and Robert hosted a blues music show, and I hosted a folk show. And I think the first time we ever played music together, we had never rehearsed a song. and they just wanted to see what would happen if they threw a folk guy and a blues guy on stage. And I think we surprised them by finding our common ground in country music. So that has started a journey of discovery. And that is why we always begin our set with this old Hank Williams song. If my wife and me's for some business, that's all right. Me and that's a woman got a license to fight. Why don't you mind your own business? I said, mind your own business, shout it. If you mind your business, then you won't be minded mine. There's a lady on the party line, a nosy thing. She picks up the receiver when she knows it's my ring. Why don't you mind your own business? I said, mind your own business. If you mind your business, then you won't be minded mine. Don't play that thing, man. All right? If I want a honky-tonk around a 2 or 3, well, that's my headache, brother, don't you worry about me. Just mind your own business. I said mind your own business. If you mind your business, then you won't be minded mine. So take it around together. When I got a little lady wears her hair up high, all the boys whistle when she walks by. Why don't they mind their own business? I said mind your own business. If you mind your business, then you won't be minded mine. You got one more in your head? Minding other people's business seems to be high tone. I got all I can do just to mind my own. Why don't you mind your own business? I said mind your own business. If you mind your business, then you won't be minded mine. Well, if you mind your business, you stay busy all the time.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's a little taste. Thank you so much. A little taste of folk music. It's not folk music because of the style of it. As we know, there are many styles within folk music, but it's folk music because of the nature of it. It's the kind of music that everyday folks used to make, and in fact, in certain locales still make for each other. And you have a friend with a guitar and add a friend with a harmonica, add some folks, you got folk music. Now, we like the showmanship that comes with folk music. I mean, this is the stuff that came before you had laser light shows and explosions on stage and wardrobe malfunctions and that kind of can on. So if you wanted to keep your audience hooked, you had to have the tricks of showmanship. Maybe you played the harmonica upside down. Maybe you played a really long note. Maybe you played with your nose.
Don't worry, he's had both the vaccination shots now.
So whatever it took is what you use to keep that audience hooked. But as much as we like the tricks of showmanship, what we really like and admire is the fact that this music's got a lot to teach us about ourselves and about one another.
In fact, on that very day where we got together and found that we had country music in common, we started to realize that, you know, the music itself was so diverse and that, in fact, was connected in lots of ways. And we found very quickly that not only did American roots music kind of tell the story of American music and the people who made it, but it really told the story of us as Americans and as friends. And so we started to notice that you could either, you know, kind of dwell on what makes this music different, or you can kind of celebrate what makes it similar. And so, it's funny because people will say things like, so you guys do one of those kind of diversity tolerance programs? And we always laugh because, I tolerate back pain. I celebrate diversity because if it wasn't for the sharing of this music between all kinds of people in our country, we wouldn't have the music we have today. And it's so much fun to see how it relates. Sometimes we use the metaphor of a tree. So if you imagine a huge tree out in the middle of a forest, and on this tree are all these different branches, and each branch is a different kind of American music. You might have a rock and roll branch, a jazz branch, a country branch, a rap branch. But the truth is, when you trace those branches underneath the ground, there you have the roots. And at the root of American music, all those branches are related. And so that's what we're into. I'll give you an example with the song we were just playing, that great Hank Williams song. When you play that song at that tempo or that speed, it's a country shuffle. As I mentioned, by the great Hank Williams. But what would happen if I took those same three guitar chords, the A major, the E major, and the B7th, and I'm going to play them in the same order. I'm going to give them about the same amount of time. The only change is going to be the tempo or the speed of the song. So I'm going to slow it way down and play the same song and watch how magically another one of those branches pops off the musical tree. You ready, Robert?
Let's try it.
Sing that old song. 'Cause if you mind your business, you sure won't be minding mine. So it's basically the same song slowed down. Well, what would happen if you took those same three chords and rather than slow them down, grab another instrument and this time speed up the tempo, play the same chords in the same order, and all of a sudden you have something like this.
1, 2, 3, 4. Way down in Louisiana, down in New Orleans, back up in the woods on the evergreen. Stood in old cabin made of earth and wood, with a little Paul named Johnny B. Good. Little work and never read or write so well, but he can play the guitar, and like the ringing a bell. Go, go, Johnny, go, 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 go.
Of course, if we were at the 2A Street, Robert would duck walk across the little stage and do his Chuck Berry imitation. But we're not there, and we're sitting down. So we're. But the truth is,
and we're old,
and we're getting older. But the truth is that when you look at the trees on the branches on that musical tree, they wouldn't be there if not for each other and if not for the root at the bottom. So we think music is the perfect window into telling America's story, how the sharing of culture is what makes great things happen. And so that's kind of the theme that runs through almost everything we do together. And we do all kinds of different things. We go out and sing in schools, for all kinds of institutions. Of course, we give concerts, but the message is always the same. We can fight about what makes us different, or we can celebrate our similarities. You know, we could come out playing new music.
Oh yeah, we could just impress you guys with it. If you like it, then you should have put a ring on it. If you like it, then you should have put a ring on it. But I mean, we love Beyonce, but really that's not our gift. All right. So instead of dealing with the branches, we like to go back to the roots of that music, the music that doesn't change every 20 minutes. And in fact, we'd like to ask you to use your imagination. Pretend you're not in the Midwest. You're not in the North. In fact, you're in the Deep South. And it's not 2021. The year's about 1845. And you're standing outside of this old weather-beaten building, windows and doors flung open to get a breeze through. And you hear this music coming from the inside of that building. That music will tell you a lot about the people inside because they're singing. And the song will be both familiar, but it might be a little different depending on who's doing the singing.
But on that particular summer morning, this is what you hear. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. And it seems no matter where we sing that song, everybody knows that old hymn, you know, one of the most popular and enduring hymns of all time. And of course, that old weather-beaten building that sound was coming out of was an old church, because you can't study the roots of American music without looking at what kind of music was being preserved in the churches of that time. But back in 1845, not all churches were the same. You could go 500 feet down the path and have a different experience.
That's right. The great abolitionist and writer Frederick Douglass described something called the invisible church. That means in the Deep South in 1845, those folks who were enslaved might go down the road and might sing in a barn or in a stable, or even go out amongst a stand of trees and sing their song, which is curiously the same song because of the preaching of the preachers going down in the Great Enlightenment. But somehow the song comes out sounding different, more like this. Oh, amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see, Lord, I see. Now, we go to school sometimes and we ask kids, did we sing the same song? And they go, no. And we know why they have trouble. It's because that song sounds so different down the road in that barn as it did from in that church. And we're interested in what changes that song. Yeah, they have a kind of a different scale. From Europe, you get that scale, and from West Africa, you get this scale, the minor pentatonic, that changes the sound. But even more important than the scale is the way you're learning it. Because if you write something down, I mean, that's the best way to save it, preserve it in Europe, right? So you write it down, you put it in a hymnal. Your father sings, Amazing Grace, and the son sings, Amazing Grace, and the grandson sings, Amazing Grace. And the great-great-great-great-granddaughter moves to Chicago, joins the Glee Club, and sings, Amazing Grace. Well, it doesn't exactly say the same. But what happens in those places where you don't write it down? You pass it down, right? Your father used to sing, Amazing Grace. And like the game of telephone, the song does not stay the same. You thought dad wasn't fancy enough, and you say, oh, amazing grace. Little did you know your son was going to fall in love with that pretty girl from Kentucky. And when she sings the babies to sleep, she's been known to sing, Amazing Grace. And 7 generations later, your great-great-great-great-granddaughter, Aretha, moves to Detroit, puts on a really cool hat, and sings for President Obama. Ooh. that's just 2 words. So 20 minutes later, not only have we heard Amazing Grace, but we've experienced the folk process. Because the song isn't written down, it keeps changing.
And if there's one thing that makes the music we love, this folk music, different than other types of music, is that it wasn't meant to be written down. It was meant to be shared and changed to fit whatever's going on in the culture at the time. That's why all those great spirituals from the Black church became songs from the Underground Railroad. And the Underground Railroad songs would often become songs for the 100-year later civil rights movement and movements to this day that are going on all over. These songs just keep adapting. They keep changing. Give you an example of an old song that may have, it was first written down in 1900, but we know that the song existed long before that. It's just a simple little spiritual, just giving hope. And you could imagine that maybe on one of those mornings down on in one of those plantations where the Underground Railroad would be making an escape that morning around the breakfast fire, maybe they were singing a song like this just to give hope. Give us a little bit, Robert.
Oh, I will be all right. Lord, I will be all right. Oh, I will be all right one day. Oh, one thing I know, Lord, if I do not yield, yeah, that I will be all right one day.
Now, sometimes when we go into schools, we pose the question to the kids, if this music can only survive by people teaching it to each other, who's going to teach the next generation the songs from the generation before? And the kids don't think they know any folk songs until we start telling them, well, what about Old MacDonald? What about the Wheels on the Bus? What about all those?
She'll be coming round the mountain.
What about all those songs that your grandpa taught to your mom and taught to you? That's how they go from generation to generation. But an interesting thing starts to happen in the 20th century. In the 20th century, we start getting these inventions, and there is no more slavery. Of course, there's still Jim Crow and all the things that keep a lot of folks down. But for the first time, people are able to kind of sing what's on their mind. So imagine it's like 1909, and we're down in Meridian, Mississippi. And for the first time, there's this style of music called the blues, played on the guitar or on the piano. But in this case, this old guy's singing a song about his girlfriend. What's her name?
Thelma.
So he's maybe down in the park at around noon.
Yeah, and Thelma's giving him the blues.
I mean, there's a lot of things you can sing the blues
I
about.
got a tea for Texas. Yeah, you can sing about dogs that won't hunt, the cotton that won't grow, and women. And, money and the lack thereof. Women. Specifically, let's sing about a woman by the name of Thelma. Got a tea for Texas. Ooh, hey, man. Tea for Tennessee. Got a tea for Texas, tea for Tennessee. I got a tea for Thelma, man. That a woman gave the blues to me.
So you can imagine this guy's down there singing this blues for his girlfriend Thelma every day. And a guy like me, a white guy, just enthralled by this new style of music. And he wants to sing a song about his girlfriend, who also happens to be named Thelma. But when that happens, comes out a little different. Grabs a guitar, similar to that one. But his song sounds like this. I got a tea for Texas. I got a tea for Tennessee. I got a tea for Texas, a tea for Tennessee. I got a tea for Thelma, the one who gave the blues to me.
Yodel-o, 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 yodel-o. Now, we have no idea where the Swiss guy came from. He was probably just yodeling through town. But when Jimmy Rogers put that yodel on that blues, which was the music he heard all around him, all of a sudden the country music branch popped off that tree.
Wait a minute. Where's the Two-Way Street Coffee House?
It's in Downers Grove, Illinois, just outside of Chicago.
Oh, well, in that case, we got to take it one step further.
Okay.
Because when Jimmy Rogers put that yodel on the blues, it became country. But when Howlin' Wolf put Jimmy Rogers' yodel on top of the blues, it became Chicago blues. I asked my baby for some water. Oh, you know that woman brought me gasoline. Ooh, you're late.
That's what happens.
I don't get to do that. We're playing Chicago tonight.
I love Howlin' Wolf. Well, I'll tell you what, the other thing that started to change things was the fact that there were these inventions. All of a sudden there was radio. All of a sudden there were record players. Music that was just regional could all of a sudden spread out and start working its magic all across the country and all across the world. In fact, because this music has to be simple enough for it to be able to, for the common folk to play and change, Robert and I can pretty much represent the entire 20th century of music in about 8 minutes. You want to try? You want to try it?
Yeah.
It's
because the blues is the spine of American music. You know, we talked about the blues becoming country and then turning back into Chicago blues. Well, it's because the blues has got this great versatility, a simplicity of 3 chords and essentially 5 notes. Whether you're using those notes for rhythm or whether you're using them for improvisation, the major pentatonic scale is 5 notes. So you end up with a guy like Son House down in the Mississippi Delta, and he's playing a song called the Death Letter Blues. Like, I got a letter this morning, I you ring it red, said hurry, hurry, comes. Girl, your love is dead. Got a letter this morning. Oh, Lord, how you think it rain? Said, hurry, hurry, cause the girl your love is dead. But that music didn't stay in the Delta. In fact, about 50 miles north is the city of Memphis. And those piano players got a hold of those 5 notes, but they use them like this. Walking up and down the pentatonic scale with one hand, playing those 3 chords with the other. Won't you hand me down my jumper? Won't you iron my overall? Won't you hand me down my jumper? Won't you iron my overall? While I'm about to catch a train, one thing called a cannonball. And that was hot stuff in the 20s. But the 30s rolled around, and America was in a Great Depression. And a lot of those piano players started looking for work in black churches. And all of a sudden, black church music started sounding suspiciously like boogie woogie, much to the chagrin of the pastor. But it was just a new style of music. They didn't call it church boogie woogie. They called it gospel. Well, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Lord, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, Lord, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Well, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Lord, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, Lord, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. And the secret is, it's the same 3 chords and the same 5 notes. Now imagine it's like 1935 and you get a young man by the name of Bill Monroe. in Kentucky. He's invented a new style called bluegrass. Frankly, ladies and gentlemen, one of the most un-Negro kind of music you can imagine. 5 white guys standing around a microphone wearing white hats and yelling yeehaw. But there's blues in bluegrass, in part because of a black man by the name of Arnold Schultz, who was one of Bill Monroe's music teachers, and in part because of the guitar player, a cat by the name of Lester Flatt. Because when those bluegrass verses came by, Lester tagged them in something called the G-Run. Mr. Watroba, would you demonstrate the G-Run?
Every bluegrass guitar player has to learn it at the end of the phrase. They look up, tip their hat, and go.
Do that again. That's nice. That's just the boogie woogie. Played with a flat pick. You know what songs like, I'm going down the road feeling bad, Lord, I'm going down the road feeling bad. I'm going down the road feeling bad, Lord, and I ain't gonna be treated this way. Yeehaw! Same 3 chords, same 5 notes. Doesn't end there though. Imagine it's about 1955 and you got yourself, no, it's about 1948. Can't leave this guy out. And you got a radio, and on that radio is a young man by the name of Ray Charles, not to be confused with Jamie Foxx. And Ray Charles is inventing something called R&B. It's basically church music, but instead of saying Jesus, Ray says baby. And it works out just fine until one night they run out of songs, and Ray's got to make up one on the fly. So Ray said, that's all right, baby, just sing back to me what I sing to you. So sing back to us what we sing to you. Are you ready? Then say, hey,
Hey,
oh,
oh,
hey,
hey,
oh,
oh,
hey, hey, oh, tell me what I
tell
said.
me what I say.
Tell me what I
Tell
said.
me what I say.
Tell me what I
Tell me
said.
what I say.
Tell me what I said.
Tell me
Let's
what
do
I
it again. Say,
Oh,
ow,
ow,
oh,
oh,
ow,
ow.
ow. Tell me what I
Tell
said.
me what I say.
Tell me what I
Tell
said.
me what I say.
Tell me what I
Tell me
said.
what I say.
Tell me what I
Tell me
said.
what I say.
I say those are the same 3 chords and the same 5 notes, but now we call it R&B. Now it's 1955, and you got a television in the middle of your living room, big gigantic wooden box with a little tiny screen, and it only gets 3 channels. That's okay, because Sunday night everybody is watching CBS, and they see this very dignified man from New York come out and say, ladies and gentlemen, we have a really good show for you tonight. You're going to like this young man. He comes to us from Tupelo, Mississippi. By way of Memphis, Tennessee, he uses 3 chords and 5 notes, ladies and gentlemen. And Ed sticks his arm out, and the kid goes, 1 for the money, 2 for the show. Feel good ready now, go cat, go, but don't you mess with my blue suede shoe. You can do anything, stay off my blue suede shoes. Yeah, blue suede shoes. Blue suede shoes. Blue suede shoes. Blue suede. You can do anything, stay off my blue suede shoes. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize that my Hollywood square does not show the gyrations that I make in my lower torso, but that, you know, there are compromises that we make being online.
I saw them all, so I'm good.
Woo! Wonder you ain't blind. So think about this. There were kids in the midst of Elvis and in the midst of Chuck Berry who were listening to music from the other side of the tracks. In the segregated South, there were black kids who wanted to be Elvis and white kids who wanted to be Chuck Berry. And in spite of their parents' concerns and fears, they started to listen to each other's music. So by the time 5 good-looking black kids from Detroit tour in the Deep South and play segregated gymnasiums with a rope down the middle to keep the black kids and the white kids from dancing together, when those kids hear those 5 notes coming out of Detroit, and they hear those kids, those guys, those Temptations play with those 5 notes, the kids tear down the rope and dance together. when it's cold outside, I got the month of May.
Oh, sing it with us.
Well, I guess you say what can make me feel this way, my girl,
My girl, my girl.
talking about my girl, my girl. Ooh.
Oh, I love
Wow, we love that part. Well, we go into schools, we do that. The kids are impressed. I gotta, they're impressed. But then they turn around and say, well, that's cool, but that's granddaddy's music, because that's like the 60s.
What's that got to do with us?
What's that got to do with us? Then we have to take them back to Sun House. We have to take them back to 1928, Death Letter Blues. But we tell them we're going to do a remix. And instead of doing each verse twice, we're going to do each verse once. We're going to speed up the tempo of the song, fade the music out, in which case the Death Letter Blues sounds like this. I got a letter this morning, how do you think it read? Said, hurry, hurry, cause the gal you love is dead. You know I packed up my suitcase, took off down the road. When I got there, she was laying out on the cooling board. I eat up close and I looked down in her face and said, hey, you know I love you, but I just can't take your place. It seemed like the thousand was standing around, a few more round. I didn't know how much I loved her till it put my baby in the ground. Before my own bed, I walked away and said, hey, you know I love you, have to see your judgment day. You know I woke up this morning, it was about to break a day. I was looking on a pillow where my baby used to lay. And now I went to church about death. I tried to pray, but the news come along and they blow my spirit away. Woke up this morning about the break of day, and I was singing on a pillow where my baby used to lay. I said, hush, I thought I heard her call my name. She didn't call so loud, boy, she called so plain. Yeah, boy. Yeah.
So are there more similarities than differences? I think
Without
so.
a doubt, right? Yeah.
Because that basically is all of the, and that's because this music has to be easy enough to learn and to pass on. That's what makes this music different. You don't write it down, so it changes. It's not like classical music, which of course we all love. It's a different kind of music for a different kind of purpose. And, in Robert and I, for the very first time, it took us 38 years or 28 years, I think, to put out our first CD. But we finally did that, and we named it the same name we named our nonprofit organization, which is Common Chords, because we want to celebrate those things that we have in common.
Indeed.
What do you think, a little Stewball?
Let's do a little Stewball.
Right.
Now, Stewball is a great.
Oh, and by the way, just very quick, because we're going to now go into where we'll be doing these full songs, and it's kind of a transition. Just want to remind you that you are absolutely welcome to enjoy this concert for free. But if you are able to donate, please head over to the Two-Way Street Coffee House and just click on that donate button. It has been a long year with no work, so we would appreciate anything you got. But it's been a long year with no work for a lot of us, so we understand if you just want to sit and enjoy this as well. So,
and we were looking at the roster of folks coming up, and we can testify that they are good.
yes, they are.
So we talk about this song called Stewball. Stewball is a song that's been around for, say, 200-300 years, maybe more.
Yeah, and although most people, when they think about the folk music revival, they think of, oh, Stewball was a racehorse, and I wish he were mine, Peter, Paul, and Mary song. But yeah, that song has actually been floating around in one version or another since the 1700s. It's based on an actual horse race that took place in Ireland back in the 1700s. But look at how it's migrated to the States, and you can find dozens and dozens of versions of this song. We thought this version was the coolest.
This is without doubt one of the coolest versions of Stewball, and it is done by the great bass player Willie Dixon.
More Chicago stuff.
And the great piano player Memphis Slim, who was known his way around Chicago as well. But neither one of us plays bass,
or
and
piano.
neither one of us plays piano. So we just make it work.
This is the most fun you can have with one chord. Was a bit day in Dallas. Oh, I wish I was there. Spend my last $100 on that iron gray mare. See her travel all day long, long, long. See her travel all day long, all day long. Oh, Stewball, my horse racing. If it wasn't my wife, oh, Stewball, they stumbled and away with my life. Wife and baby left behind. Wife and baby left behind. Left behind.
No Stewball, he was a black horse, just as slick as a mole. He had a ring around his four-shoulder, and it shined like gold, like gold, like gold. Had a ring around his full shoulder, and it shine
like gold.
Now old Stewball, he was a racehorse, but the poor horse, he was blind. He ran so fast down in Texas, he left his shadow behind.
That's fast.
That's fast. Behind, behind. He left his shadow behind.
Oh, Stewball was a racehorse, and old Molly, she was too. Oh, Molly, she did stumble, and old Stewball just flew around the racetrack all day long, 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 around the racetrack all day long, all day long, all day long, all day long. It's a little different than what we're used to hearing on a song like that.
Absolutely. Good stuff.
Let's do another one of those songs that have migrated so many times that, you could get a version of this song by name a bluegrass band or Woody Guthrie or, a string band. But probably the source of this song was probably some kind of a spiritual, I would imagine. But the Carter family, of course, the first family of country music and such an influence on so many people. It's where the song was first sort of discovered and spread around. Great, great tune, and I'll grab the banjo for this one.
All right.
And you guys can sing along. I think that's what I miss most in this pandemic is hearing your voices. Let's try it. Sowing on the mountain,
Sowing on the mountain,
reaping in the valley.
reaping in the valley,
Sowing on the mountain,
Sowing on the mountain,
reaping in the valley.
reaping in the valley,
Sowing on the mountain,
Sowing on the
reaping in the
mountain,
valley.
reaping in the valley.
You're gonna reap just what you sow. If you've been alive,
If you've been alive,
better quit your lying.
better quit your lying.
If you've been alive,
If you've been alive,
better quit your
better
lying.
quit your lying.
If you've been alive,
alive,
better quit your
Better quit your
lying.
lying.
You're gonna reap just what you sow.
sowing on the mountain, reaping in the valley, sowing on the mountain, reaping in the valley, sowing on the mountain, reaping in the valley. You're gonna reap just what you sow. If you've been a gambler, better quit your gambling. If you've been a gambler, better quit your gambling. If you've been a gambler, better quit your gambling. You're gonna reap just what you sow.
God told Noah,
God told Noah,
rainbow sign.
rainbow sign.
God told Noah,
God told Noah,
rainbow sign.
rainbow sign.
God told
God told
Noah,
Noah,
rainbow sign. Won't be water, the fire it's time.
said it won't be water,
Won't be water,
but a fire it's time.
fire it's time.
And it won't be water, but a fire it's time.
Fire it's time.
And it won't be water,
Won't be water,
but a fire it's time.
fire it's time.
God gave Noah
God gave Noah
rainbows. Oh, put a little blues on it, man. Sowing on the mountain,
sowing on the mountain,
reaping in the valley.
reaping in the valley,
Sowing on the mountain,
sowing on the mountain,
reaping in the valley.
reaping in the valley,
Sowing on the mountain,
sowing on the
reaping in the
mountain,
valley.
reaping in the valley.
You're gonna reap just what you sow. You're gonna reap just what you sow.
Yeah.
What would we do without the Carter family? That's for sure. Tell you again, my name is Matt Watroba. This is Robert Jones, and we are just so happy to be at the Two-Way Street Coffee House, one of my favorite little coffee houses in the whole wide world. We're going to do a few more songs here, and then I think if people want to come into the Zoom room and ask any questions or have a quick chat, we'd be happy to do that. But I thought maybe it'd be time we talk a lot about the music that has influenced us. Maybe we'll show what happens to some of our branches. You want to do a couple of original songs?
Absolutely. So what happens is, you get inspired. For example, I brought another guitar with me, and we are both blessed to have these great instruments, and your instruments come to you in wondrous and different ways. So I brought this guitar with me that
I love this song. This is a great song.
Is a little different. It's got pinstripes. It's like, somebody referred to it recently as a bowling alley guitar because of all the woods that's in it. And someone once asked me, it's like, why do you play a pinstripe guitar? Well, because I'm from Detroit. That's why. So there's a little song I do called This Old House. Gotta remember how I start the song. This old house was built on Trumbull Street back in 1910 when the whole world worked for Henry Ford. He was a poor man's friend. Indeed, money built it, but it outlived the fame of that city that put the world on wheels and gave Motown its name. But when you come from Detroit, you have to know, my friend, that you cannot surrender and you dare not give in. And even when you're broken and you're almost at the end, know that if you save the pieces, you will rise again. Milton Smith, he lived in this old house for almost 60 years. And it had his share of singing, and it had his share of tears. Through the Coolies and Hernandezes, time would take its toll. 2012, they took her down, 102 years old. But when you come from Detroit, you have to know, my friend, that you cannot surrender and you dare not give in. And even when you're broken and you're almost at the end, know that if you save the pieces, you will rise again. I'm just a Detroit storyteller, but I travel near and far. And a Detroit storyteller wants to play Detroit guitar. So I met a builder named Sim Nicky, a man of awesome skills. Arch tops, flat tops, ukuleles, ain't nothing he can't build. See, I got something I'd like to show you, and I think it's kind of sweet. See, I built this from this old house. Used to stand on Trumbull Street. I used maple from the floorboard and walnut from the shelves. And this top is from a ceiling joist I cut and clean myself. Now I play a Detroit guitar made of 100-year-old wood, and I got to tell you, she sings mighty good. Cause when you come from Detroit, you have to know, my friend, that you cannot surrender and you dare not give in. And even when you're broken and you're almost at the end, know that if you save the pieces, you will sing again. Know that if you save the pieces, you will sing again.
Great song. Show them that
Thank you.
guitar. Show them
Oh,
that.
yeah. Yeah, this guitar is, thank you, pinstripe, because the back are the floorboards, maple floorboards from that old house, and the dark brown wood is from the shelves of walnut, and the top is from a ceiling joist made of Douglas fir, and it was built in 1910, and that's what's inlaid in the 12th fret. So no matter what city I'm playing in, if I'm playing this guitar, I'm playing Detroit.
I love it.
There you go.
In fact, my guitar, if you can see the headstock too, was built by somebody a lot of you folks may know. He used to run, along with his then wife, Ann Hills, used to run the Hog-Eye Art Center in, was that in Evanston, right? Jan Berta built my guitar, gave it to Steve Gillette and Cindy Magson, who passed it on to me. So lots of great stories behind our guitars. I'd like to sing a song that I wrote I wrote this, I think, probably in 2018, when I realized that half of my Facebook friends unfriended the other half of my Facebook friends. All of a sudden, people just weren't getting along, you know? And it's getting worse. And we got to stop that. Could you love me if I don't look like you? Is it deeper? Is it stronger? Something hidden, something true. Stare a little longer, will I see myself in you? Could you love me if I don't look like you? Could you love me if I don't think like you? Is it deeper? Is it stronger? Something hidden, something true. Stare a little longer, will I see myself in you? Could you love me if I don't think like you? This life's a burning candle, and it would be a shame if we ignored the difference between the smoke and the flame. Could you love me if if I don't pray like you? Is it deeper? Is it stronger? Something hidden, something true. Stare a little longer, will I see myself in you? Could you love me if I don't pray like you? This moment is a miracle, so why not find a way to be here and be grateful that we share another day? Could you love me if I don't love like you? Is it deeper? Is it stronger? Something hidden, something true. Stare a little longer, will I find myself in you? Could you love me if I am not like you?
What a great song.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much.
Times we're living in.
You know, very often people will ask us if songs really do make a difference, if it's really if they can make a difference. And when I think of that, I think of Pete Seeger, and I think of this song that has made such a difference in the lives of so many different people. And this is a song that we gave you a little hint of a little earlier in the program, a song that is based on an old spiritual called "I Will Be All Right." Remember when Robert was singing that song? Can you give us a little bit of that, Robert?
I will. I'll be alright. I'll be alright. I'll be alright one day. Oh, one thing I know, Lord, if I do not yield, then I will be all right one day.
There's this magical place in the foothills of the Smoky Mountains called the Highlander School. And at the Highlander School, it's where they learned strategy for first the labor movement. And then when it got very clear that there was going to be a bigger movement because of the bus boycott in Montgomery, Alabama in 1955, that it was time to start learning strategy to plan the next big movement, which was, of course, the civil rights movement. And they knew that they needed a song, right? Because at the end of every one of their workshops, at the end of every one of their sessions, and these are, by the way, sessions where Martin Luther King would teach, where Rosa Parks actually learned strategies to take back to Montgomery. And they knew that they needed, at the end of every one of these things, they would sing that old song, "I Will Be All Right." But when they decided to have an anthem of their own, they knew that that song wouldn't work, because for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's not I anymore, right? Now it's we. So the I changed to we. And it's not that just we're going to be all right, but that we actually need to overcome those obstacles to true justice and equality for all people, right? Dr. King, one of the best things he ever said, I think, was that when there's injustice anywhere, there's injustice everywhere. So that old song, "I'll Be All Right," became "We Shall Overcome." Now, who made those changes? Credited to three people. Chicago's own Frank Hamilton, who has, of course, worked at the Old Town School of Folk Music for many, many years. He's one of the changers of that songs, as well as, of course, Pete Seeger and the great Guy Carawan, who was in charge of cultural studies at Highlander. So they took that old song and someone said, you know, I think we also need to pep it up a little bit, give it a little bit of a march feel. So that old song became the song we're all familiar with. Let's sing it together. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart. the great things about this song was how you could change it and adapt it. All you had to do was just change one phrase and you could sing a whole new verse. And Guy Carawan told us once that he remembers a night at the Highlander School where the FBI had crashed it at night, cut all the power, snaking through with guns drawn, right, because of this threat. And a little 17-year-old African-American girl, rather than panic or freak out, just simply said the words, "We are not afraid." And everybody in the room started, "We are not afraid. We are not afraid. We are not afraid today. Today. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday.
Now, this past year, we've had challenges, so many challenges of COVID and isolation and political upheaval. And right now, there's a trial going on that could very well send us back into another period where we don't talk to each other, we don't communicate with each other. But just like Frank Hamilton said, well, the thing we got to do is just write a new verse. Oh, we'll embrace again.
Try it with us.
We'll embrace again. We'll embrace again someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday.
Now, we can't be there in Chicago with you, but if you enjoyed the program this evening, the way to thank us would be to sing it with us one more time. Let's do it together.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday.
How about a hand for my musical partner and best friend, Robert Jones?
And a hand for my best friend and musical partner, Mr. Matt Watroba. Thank you. And this has been fun, man. We've enjoyed
has.
this.
Wow, you guys are fantastic. Thank you so much. That was just like food for the soul, for sure.
I missed that. I didn't hear what you said.
I said it was food for the soul, and you guys are absolutely fantastic.
Well, that bared repeating, I think. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sorry, I probably was mumbling. So yes, thank you for all that came and tuned in. We were having a little bit of technical difficulties on the Facebook live stream side, but we'll get the video up as soon as we can on those streams so everyone can watch. But we have a nice crowd here. So we want to thank everybody for coming, and we want to remind everybody that there's a sing around tomorrow from 2 to 4 p.m. Next week we have Jamie Harris, and thank you to Tim in the background.
Thank you,
for
Tim.
working so diligently. Yeah. So how do you guys want to work it? Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask for Matt or Robert?
And you could turn your cameras back on. I'd love to see who's in the room.
And
Be bold.
unmute.
Yeah. Feel free to chime in.
There they are.
There's some folks.
There's some folks.
Can they unmute themselves, or do you guys need to do that?
They can unmute if that'd be great. If they can do that. Anybody that wants
who
to
has a
join the
question?
conversation.
Big fingers with wine. I like that.
Well, I know
Well,
I have.
how does meet?
Can you guys have performed a lot over the years together? You said you first met over 30 years ago. Can you tell me, and maybe our audience members, what was the most memorable, or maybe a few of the most memorable performances or groups that you got to do together? Because I'm sure that there's...
You know, the one that pops to my mind, and you can go next and think about, did one pop into your mind?
Go ahead.
Okay. We did this program with a wonderful Detroit-based nonprofit called Focus Hope. And Focus Hope started right after what's sometimes called a riot, what's sometimes called an uprising.
Rebellion.
Or a rebellion in 1967 here in the city of Detroit. And that's when it formed to build bridges between races. It's gone on to do so much more than that. It's gone on to do training, factory work training, machinist type training, engineering for kids in the inner city. It's just an amazing group. But they hired us to do a pen pal program. Now, there were kids, third graders from the suburbs, who had been writing to third graders from the city all year long. And then they came in together to meet for the very first time. And Robert and I got to perform for these third graders who were discovering before our eyes all the things they had in common. You like pizza? I like pizza. You know, it was just like this beautiful coming together. And one of the songs we sang was Woody Guthrie's This Land Is Your Land, which is a song they all knew, right? And you could tell they'd look at each other, they'd sing it together. And this one little Arabic girl came up to me after the show, and she looked up and she said, "Would you mind if I sang that song to you in Arabic?" She's third grade. Wow. And she proceeded to sing the chorus of This Land Is Your Land in Arabic. And then she proceeded to go, "Why are you crying, Mr. Watroba?"
Yeah, that was great.
That was the most memorable kids performance I can ever think of.
That's awesome.
There was a performance we are often called upon to do schools, but for some reason, administrators are afraid to put you in front of older audiences. But somebody got a grant, and we ended up in a school in Lansing that was like, you could walk into the school and see it was tough.
Yeah, there was metal detectors.
Yeah, the only thing they didn't have was a guard tower, right? And we're in this school, and these kids who are taller than us, these big black kids who looking like, if you say anything to me, I'm gonna, And Matt's like, what do we do? And I'm like, well, we do our program, right? If it works, it works, right? So there's a part in the program where, as Matt said earlier, we say, these songs, there are certain songs that are folk songs, and you know them because your mom taught you before you were too big to complain about them, right? And so part of that is we're doing Wheels on the Bus, right? And we're doing old Wheels on the Bus, school round them, and we look up, and these big tough kids are going round and round, the wheels, and it's like, yeah, they're still kids, man. They might be able to fold you in two, but they're still kids.
Yeah, we've had, as you might imagine, that's a great question, because of what we do is not just concerts. I remember once playing in the only federal prison in Michigan, in Milan, Michigan, and we were doing a writing the blues with a bunch of inmates. And one of the things that surprised me was how many of them already knew us because they listened to our radio shows. So they were allowed radio, so they knew Blues from the Lowlands, they knew the Folks Like Us program, and we were just having a blast. And then with zero notice, something happened, and man, they packed us up and shot us out the door faster than I've ever. And I have been shot out a lot of doors. That was pretty amazing. But just to show you that this music belongs everywhere. It really belongs everywhere.
That's
Good
awesome.
question.
Oh.
Thanks. All right. Does anybody have any other questions?
Yeah, Matt, can I get a look at that Jan Berta guitar?
Yeah.
The headstock there.
It's got the owl on it. I think he did 3 guitars that had birds of prey. Ann Hills has one. I have one. I don't know who has the other.
Yeah, I knew Jan Berta. I'm from Benton Harbor, St. Joseph area.
Yeah.
And in fact, Ann Hills was my older cousin's girlfriend when they were like 12.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Your
and
cousin's got good taste.
Oh, I love Ann. She's a good friend.
yeah,
And we found out a couple weeks ago that this guitar that he was working on, apparently he cut himself. So actually it has Jan Berta's blood is in the owl. So that's pretty good. I don't think you can sell that one. You can't trade that one.
This is the kind of pool we swim in as folk musicians. When I left my job and working for Folk Alley in Ohio about 6 years ago, my other guitar was falling apart. I really needed a new one. I didn't have a job. And I went to a folk festival where Steve Gillette and Cindy Magson were playing. And they were on the way to return this guitar to Jan because it just wasn't getting enough play. By the end of the festival, they gifted it to me. So they actually just gave me this guitar. And it's been my guitar for the last 6 years. So I don't know if that happens in jazz and rock and roll. Maybe it does. But I know that it happens in this community that we've created.
yeah. He makes some wonderful instruments. He used to make he had a series called Dove that were like the first guitars that he made. And he made one that he didn't like. He just considered it a scrap. And he gave it to a friend of mine, a guy named Andy Willie, who's a guitar player and singer in Grand Rapids now. But it's just a scrap. And Jan, didn't think he'd sell it or do anything with it. And it sounded incredible. Just an amazing.
He makes beautiful banjos too. I know I've seen some great banjos on his shelf as well. So, anybody else have any comments?
I was thinking it's the weekend. It's the anniversary of the death of MLK, and I know that you guys did you both go down and visit some of the significant sites of the civil rights movement and sing on those buses? I remember Matt telling stories about that. Did you both do that work, or you go?
I've mostly been doing the bus work, but we were lucky enough the last time I did it, where Robert was down in Alabama, because that's where his family's from and his wife's family's from. And we actually got to hook up down in Alabama and do a concert for the folks on the Living Legacy Project tour bus, which was at one of the UU churches. And what Joel's talking about is the Living Legacy Project, which Reggie Harris is part of that and on the board. And in the last few years, Reggie has been asking me to take the pilgrimage and march and lead folks on these buses, visiting iconic stops along the Civil Rights Trail and meeting folks who were there on Bloody Sunday, who had stories to tell. It's really an amazing thing. In fact, that's where I was headed when the pandemic hit in March, and that was my first canceled gig. I was really looking forward to being back with those folks because it's an amazing thing. If you're at all interested in that history, I would strongly recommend heading over to the Living Legacy Project and check out when they're going to start up those tours again.
Hopefully soon.
And I've had the privilege of playing, throughout the South. Selma, Alabama is a home of a great storyteller by the name of Miss Catherine Wyndham. She invited me down for a tale-telling festival, and then I got to spend did a residency in Birmingham, Alabama, and I've got folks all throughout, Birmingham and in Tuscaloosa. And then my family came from a little town called Evergreen, which is very close to Mobile. So, yeah.
I really, playing in the South is something I didn't think I'd do much. And it's really taught me to have a respect for there's such good people down there, It's real easy. Your prejudices come up. And isn't that always the case? It's like you're afraid, you fear what you don't know. And once you get to know it, you don't fear it anymore.
Next thing you know, you're eating Conecuh brand sausages and drinking sweet tea.
That's right.
It's a beautiful thing.
And by the way, has anybody ever flown into Birmingham, Alabama? If you ever fly into Birmingham, Alabama, you've got to understand that the name of the airport is Shuttlesworth Airport, which is such a breakthrough because Reverend Shuttlesworth was an amazing leader in the civil rights movement. And to think that town would name an airport after it, after what he put them through, is just, I just get this great feeling every time I fly into Birmingham, Alabama, where Dr. King was, passive and not in your face, and he tried to take Shuttlesworth was right in your face. He was an amazing guy. I got to meet him one time before he died. It was great.
That sounds awesome.
Well, listen, you guys, this was so much fun. I can't wait till we can come back to Chicago, the area. One of the things Robert and I have been known to do too is play the Fox Valley Festival together. And so that'd be fun to come back and do that again. That's one of my favorite all-time festivals. Jewel Ulvin has done such a great job over there. Playing with the Two-Way Street Coffee House has been great. My relationship with WFMT, Rich Warren, and now Marilyn. Chicago's a great folk town. There's no question about it.
Well, we definitely love to have you guys in our neck of the woods, whether it be in person, hopefully soon, or virtual, as we're lucky to have you guys tonight. Would you be so kind? Every artist who plays at the Two-Way Street always does an encore, and we would love for you to leave us tonight with one if you'd be so kind.
Oh, sure.
Sure.
Wonderful. And thanks again to everybody who joined and tuned in tonight. Don't forget to donate, www.twowaystreet.org. And take it away, guys.
Thank you.
Reverend Gary?
Yep. One of my heroes, one of our heroes, is Reverend Gary Davis, one of the finest guitar players ever. Great player and a teacher, a street singer who'd go out on the streets in New York and Harlem specifically and play that guitar for money in all kinds of weather, all kinds of rain and cold. And if he could get an audience together, he'd do a little gospel, do a little preaching. Had a song called I Heard the Angels Singing. And so all you guys, if you're muted, you can sing along.
Just do what I do.
It goes. One day when I was walking along, Lord,
I heard the angels singing.
Looked around and I saw no one.
I heard the angels singing.
What do you reckon they said to me, Lord?
I heard the angels singing.
Sins are forgiven and your soul set free.
I heard the angels singing. One morning soon. One morning soon, Lord. One morning soon.
You know I
Heard the angels singing.
Yeah. When I went to the valley to pray,
I heard the angels singing.
you know I met old Satan down along the way.
I heard the angels singing.
What you reckon that bald-headed rascal had to say?
I heard the angels singing.
Say you too young to die, you too old to pray.
I heard the angels singing. One morning soon. One morning soon, Lord. One morning soon.
You know I
Heard the angels singing.
folks come running for miles around
I heard the angels singing.
just to see what the shouting was all about.
I heard the angels singing.
Just when I thought that my soul was lost,
I heard the angels singing.
you know my dungeon shook and my chain fell off.
I heard the angels singing.
Yes,
One morning soon. One morning soon, Lord. One morning soon. I heard the angels singing. I heard the angels singing.
Have you
I heard the angels singing.
so sweet,
I heard the angels singing.
sing like the serpent of the angels' feet. I heard them.
I heard the angels.
I heard the angels.
I heard the angels sing.
Yeah.
that song. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much.
We had a great time.